human race has always been obsessed by things it can't understand. The more elusive the answer, the more we try to find it. The Society for Psychical Research has compiled hundreds of reports since it was founded in 1882. These are just some of them, proving, the Society's members believe, the existence of paranormal phenomena. But after more than a century, they still haven't been able to find out how or why. Our stories tonight are as strange as any the Society has ever encountered. We'll meet a woman who works alongside doctors to practice astonishing healing powers, and we'll hear from the patients she has apparently cured. First, this particular report was compiled by a group investigating ghost stories at the fortress which has guarded England's shores longer than any other, from the Iron Age to the Second World War. High above the famous White Cliffs on the south coast, Dover Castle is the kind of place you might expect to attract ghost stories. Staff there take them with a pinch of salt, but more recent events have made them take their unearthly guests much more seriously. Nicknamed Hellfire Corner, damp and eerie. There are 3.5 miles of these tunnels carved through the cliffs during World War II. Gloomy or not, today they are the favourite tourist attraction in this busy ferry port. Leslie Simpson has guided thousands of people on their plunge into history, but there's one tour he'll never forget.
I had a group of about 20 people.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll just follow me through now, please.
We came into the repeater station. I brought the group up to the barrier. I stand on a step where I can overlook the group.
You're now in the Defence Telecommunications Network Station, DTN.
I played
we call this the repeater station.
Information.
All lines entering the headquarters came through a narrow well shaft, 150 feet below this room.
I had to notice the lady, she was very intent, and she suddenly looked very alarmed, and she fell down and slipped down onto her knee.
I'm okay, I'm fine.
But the lady wasn't really fine, as Leslie found out at the end of the tour.
Thanks very much. Glad you enjoyed the tour. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye. Thanks for coming. Are you okay now? You didn't hurt yourself in there, did you?
No, I'm fine. But, well, this is going to sound very strange, but I think I ought to tell you what happened down there.
Behind that, on the level above...
She explained that she'd been watching a man. She had a uniform on, a naval uniform, down at the far end of the repeater station. And she thought he belonged here, part of the tour, tinkering with the equipment.
It was essential that this equipment worked...
She got alarmed because he started to walk towards the group. He was walking quite fast. He came down the second small flight of steps, and he just walked straight through the barrier and right through her.
Technically, this room was known as a repeater or amplifier.
This sighting is only one of many in a complex which spans 3 eras: the Hellfire Corner tunnels, the old gun rooms built to fight off Napoleon's threatened invasion, and the ancient castle where William the Conqueror once stayed. All have reports of inexplicable goings-on. Bomb-proof and impregnable, the evacuation of Dunkirk was planned here. Hundreds of people lived and worked inside the cliff face. The tunnels were sealed for half a century before being opened up as a museum. Even now, visitors are allowed round only with supervision. Some would say for good reason.
I had a tour group of about 25 to 30 people, and the tour had been going well until we reached the repeater station. I noticed a father and daughter standing slightly away from the rest of the group.
150 feet below this room, connecting with the main distribution frame behind the desks.
The girl appeared to be in communication with somebody who appeared invisible to me, and her father was looking on interestedly. And then all of a sudden the father disappeared out of the repeater station.
This equipment worked at all times. At the very rear of the tunnel is the...
Can you stay with the rest of the group, please?
Where 24 GPO engineers...
Yes, of course. Sorry.
24-hour standby would check...
Karen tried to forget the incident and carried on with her tour.
move into the next room, ladies and gentlemen, a piece of light-hearted information for you. This room is supposed to be the most haunted room in Hellfire Corner.
Yes, I know, and I've just seen the ghost.
At that point, I thought we got a bit of a one here and dismissed what he said.
OK, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to follow me.
He was very casual about the whole thing, but the girl was very withdrawn and shaken. She looked in shock, in fact.
Karen realised something very unusual had happened, so she took down the details.
He said his name was Bill Billings, and he said he was killed when he was assembling an amplifier rack or something.
I thought that they had definitely seen someone down here.
Despite such testimonies, some of the castle staff are quite sure that the reason for it all is a perfectly natural one. After 8 years of taking groups around the castle, Philip Wyburn Brown thinks he knows what's behind the apparently abnormal activities.
The building is 800 years old. It's built high on the cliff. It is subject to a lot of wind and air currents up here. So I think a lot of it is very much the natural phenomena of the building itself.
So could it all just be a combination of natural atmospherics and overactive imaginations? Local investigators have done a scientific stakeout of the castle and its many tunnels and passages on 3 all-night vigils.
We brought a team of 16 people into Dover Castle, divided the team into pairs, working to a very strict shift rota. We brought in very sophisticated equipment such as a high-tech computerised sensing machine which senses changes in temperature, movement. Everybody's equipped with tape recorders, thermometers, video cameras. Each pair were given a certain location to work on.
Group H, Sue Nichols and Keith Akers, were stationed in a passageway with their tape recorder.
We'd been sat there about 5 hours when suddenly there was an enormous bang.
Unable to believe their ears, they played back the tape.
And we knew there was no doors anywhere around. There was nobody else near us.
And then, the investigators say, they didn't just hear what they claimed to be poltergeist activity, they saw it.
At approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, my partner and myself heard a loud bang in this room, and we investigated this door here, found it was to be locked, and moved away approximately 10 feet. There was this huge bang behind us, which made us both jump out of our skins. We turned around quite petrified to see the door still vibrating madly.
The next time it happened, the investigators were determined to get proof. Chris Cherry, a master at the University of Kent, trained a video camera on the door.
The noise was quite tremendous, and all those tapestries above our heads started swaying. And this was rather extraordinary. We thought we got a paranormal phenomenon, and I very stupidly yelled out, "We've got it!" And of course that screwed the whole thing up, and it ceased.
Each team who were working in the keep thoroughly checked the area out, and we could find no apparent natural reason for the door to run at all.
So what could be the cause of the events at Dover Castle? Michael Brumley is a psychic who claims he can tune into departed spirits. He's never been here before, so what will he find in Hellfire Corner?
This area is very powerful and very strong. I would expect that at different times people have walked through here.
In the repeater station, Michael came up with a name.
I've just been given the name Helen. For what reason?
But the castle official watching Michael Brumley wasn't impressed.
He started talking about Helen, and there just wouldn't have been women in that area, so I became very sceptical and just didn't believe what he was saying. It was just didn't gel, just wasn't right.
However, a few days after we filmed Michael Brumley, Another visitor, an Australian tourist who'd only just arrived in Britain, astonished everyone.
I told the tour guide what I'd seen while I was in this room, how a ghostly figure had come running up towards me. He was blonde, he was wearing navy blue. He said his name was Samuel, and he was asking me questions about a woman called Helen. He was very agitated and wanting to find out about where Helen was.
When she came to me and told me about Helen, you really could have just knocked me down with a feather. It was amazing, really. It sort of changed my attitude, really, to the place.
Well, I imagine it would. And it's not the first time that Michael Bromley's psychic information has made an impact. He's previously been employed as official psychic to the Olympic Games, helping police to sniff out security loopholes. Strange but true. Think of the world's greatest discoveries and inventions. Whatever you come up with, you have to admit that none is nearly as fantastic as the human body. Our eyes can take in more than the largest telescope. Our brains are more complex than the most powerful computer. And all the information in this bookcase would just fit into the genetic blueprint of a single human cell. And all that from something that's about 70% water. Even now, scientists don't really understand what it is that gives us the spark we call life. And there are still many conditions where conventional medicine has unfortunately had to admit defeat. But there are those who claim they can perform the most amazing cures without drugs or surgery. And some doctors are coming to believe it too.
All the doctors refer patients to Lorraine. We don't think that what she does is really any different to what we do.
Hello. I have an appointment with Lorraine.
Even if you can't understand something, if for some people it does seem to be effective, then why not use it?
I thought it would be akin to a religious experience, people standing around a font or something like that, dunking people into religious water and healing them that way.
I can have a look in that ear, if I may. So
a doctor's surgery in Otley, a Yorkshire town where people aren't given to exaggerated claims, especially the doctors. But when their medical powers can do no more, they've come to accept the more unorthodox methods of Lorraine Ham. So much so that Lorraine now works at the surgery.
I'll often start at the head, and what's happening then is I'm just sensing a little bit deeper as to what the problem is.
Lorraine says that without even touching, she feels energies in the body, and the healing begins.
There are energy centres throughout the body. I can usually sense where there's a depletion or if it's overcharged. And so really it's a matter of balancing and unblocking energies that may be causing the problem in the first place.
Even a local vicar describes Lorraine's powers with a word he doesn't use lightly.
If you'd asked me to describe a miracle, I couldn't perhaps describe it in any other way.
The Reverend Alan Kitchen had a severe neck injury. One morning he woke up in agony.
I need a doctor, dear. I can't move.
The pain came all down my arm and into my fingers, and it really was agony. The doctor came in and consigned me to this hospital for 10 days traction.
Although on the face of it, it's only one small part of the body which is affected, the pain is so severe that individuals can sometimes hardly move.
They sent me home. All they'd given me was bottles of painkillers, really, and just told me to rest in bed.
He seemed to be in a lot of pain. You could see by his face, it was distorted.
The vicar's wife called in Lorraine.
Hello, how are you today?
My neck and my arm hurt. In fact, they hurt all the time. I've never known nothing like this.
I sat at the bottom of the bed and I watched her.
Right then, let's see.
She never actually touched me as such. She never once put a hand on me in any way at all.
But to begin with, it only seemed to hurt more.
After a while, the pain began to build up, and it built up so much that I've had to say to her, give it a rest for a minute. It's hurting too much.
Please, stop!
Just try a moment longer.
Then all three, the vicar, his wife, and Lorraine, noticed a remarkable change.
Suddenly, something happened in the room. There was a brand new atmosphere in the room, a tremendous sense of peace.
And then he relaxed and his pain had gone. It was very emotional, very special. It's very difficult to put into words a feeling like that.
It was just lovely to see him walking around again and not in any pain anymore. It was really tremendous.
We have no scientific explanation why that should happen. After such a long period on traction and then 2 weeks bed rest, to suddenly get up and walk, sounds almost like the stuff miracles are made of.
So what are the healing powers which Lorraine Ham apparently possesses? Her family is originally from New Zealand, where her great-great-grandfather was a Maori chief and master of medicines and bush plants.
There is always a possibility there is a link between a great-great-grandfather's healing abilities and mine.
She's been far more successful than I had anticipated. Approximately 80% of all people who go and see her feel that they've benefited, and many people have been greatly improved by her treatment.
But how is Lorraine Ham so successful? Does she really bring about physical changes?
I think that faith healing does work, but there's no special physical process taking place. This is a psychological process. They make the patient believe they're going to get better in the way that a convincing doctor might do. And it is this mind over matter, influenced by the faith healer, that makes the patient get better.
But Lorraine insists those she treats don't have to believe in her powers. Speedway rider Gary Havelock certainly didn't.
It's a really frightening crash actually, because I was going very fast.
Gary had a serious accident during a race in Poland.
It's me hand. Me hand.
My hand was hurting the most. I tried to move it and I could feel something clicking away inside there, and I knew I'd done something straight away, really.
When Gary got to hospital, X-ray showed his hand was broken, and there was even worse to come.
You have complete fracture.
The doctor told him it would be 6 weeks before he could ride a bike again.
6 weeks.
6 weeks? There's no way I can be out of action for that long. I've got a big race on Saturday.
Sorry. Excuse.
The big race was the Commonwealth Speedway final. Only if he took part would Gary qualify for the World Championships. The usual experts couldn't help.
The first obvious thing, of course, was this fracture, which you can see here, which would have caused an awful lot of pain, particularly on a speedway bike with a vibration.
Couldn't grip the handlebars of the bike properly, and I knew that if I couldn't grip them enough, then I certainly wouldn't be winning any races.
Would you like to come and take a seat?
I was desperate, and I would give anything a try, really.
I've never done anything like this before.
That's all right.
Although Gary was sceptical of Lorraine, his girlfriend had been treated by her before. He decided he had nothing to lose.
She put one hand underneath my hand and one hand over it. It was a real hot sensation, as if somebody had had a blowtorch on my hand.
As I held Gary's hand, I had the sensation that the bones were actually knitting together.
Afterwards, when she finished, when she finally touched me, her fingers were icy cold.
4 days later, Gary raced in the Commonwealth final. He won and went on to win the World Championships too.
I must say that I was very surprised to find that he did so well in the final.
It was like a dream come true for me. It's all I ever wanted to do, be world champion.
Perhaps the best of Lorraine's cases, and the one which leaves the people involved with no doubt of her powers, is that of Margaret and Peter Lupton.
When we first got married, we really did want to have children. After a couple of years of trying, nothing happened, so we went to our doctor, who referred us to a consultant.
But the consultant could find nothing wrong.
I'm pleased to say there is no reason why you can't have children.
So what do we do?
Well, let's keep an eye on things to begin with. We'll start off with you checking your temperature on these charts every day.
For 5 years, I went through every test imaginable, keeping regular appointments at the hospital.
And the doctors really just seemed to be doing the same tests over and over again. There didn't seem to be any progression in the treatment.
Nothing seemed to work. The couple became more and more disheartened.
I'm all right. I'll be asleep in a minute. I just want to sit up for a while.
In the end, I'd just had quite enough. We decided to just get off the merry-go-round and leave it. We'd had enough of all the tests.
The Luptons built themselves a life without children. They enjoyed holidays around the world, and Margaret worked hard at her career. Then a couple of years later, she went to Lorraine for relaxation, and the subject of children came up.
Is it anything to do with children?
I didn't tell Peter about it initially. I was clinging to a hope that I didn't want to awaken in Peter again after we'd decided to give up.
I would do the healing generally around her body and over her body, and then I would concentrate on the abdominal area.
The sessions finished after 6 months, just before Margaret and Peter set off for a holiday. But something felt different. Although she had none of the normal signs of pregnancy, Margaret took a test. The results came in a phone call.
Could you say that again?
I asked him to repeat it about 3 times when he told me it was positive.
Are you sure?
I was just so over the moon. It was incredible.
First of all, I was absolutely stunned about it. Then it was, I was really elated. Couldn't wait.
The first postcard Margaret sent from her holiday was to Lorraine Ham.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Margaret had a little boy, Joshua. And a second son, Reese, is now 1 year old.
I think if it hadn't have been for Lorraine, we probably would be a childless couple now. We're having better holidays now with the kids than we had before without them.
There's one for the family album they thought they'd never have. Even doctors who don't believe in any special powers are baffled by the success of healers. They argue that people are getting better because they think they're going to get better. But if the human mind can cure physical conditions all by itself, it may be even more remarkable than we think. Until next time, good night.